Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal. Crazy day, crazy week. We are live here on Newstalk 1040am all over the greater Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, Lakeland, downtown St. Pete, downtown Tampa Bay. And we're live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Unbelievable. Trying some different camera settings today. Hopefully it's going to be better. We'll see. We keep improving. We keep dialing in. I've got all kinds of different ideas, different things that we're dealing with. This country is dealing with a lot. Let me tell you that right now. This country, let me just turn down the gain a little bit on this microphone, just a little bit, because I think, I've got a strong voice there, right? Not even fully back, but hey, we're doing it. Listen, there's so much to talk about. So much that we're going to get into today. And I can't wait to do that. And basically, but at the same time, I'm worried, dude. I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to turn down the gain here on my okay, here we go. I'm a little bit worried. Kind of, right? I mean, it's not always easy being right about all these things. And I'm not right about everything, and I get it wrong sometimes, and I'm happy, I'm not trying to play Rush Limbaugh here or anything like that, right? But wow, we've laid this thing out. We've laid it out week after week after week, month after month. We've done it here. We've told you what's going on. We let you know about that. And I said that 2023 was the year that reality hit. And 2024 was going to be sort of the revenge of reality, right? And I can just tell you, whether it's on the air, whether it's off the air and dealing with people out there, look at the news stories, and we're going to bring Paula Villarreal here in a second, that, I mean, I don't know how many ways I can say this, but it really is a serious situation in the respect of, I think, and I'm just trying to figure, and you're going to have to bear with me here today, audience. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You're going to have to bear with me, because I'm going to have to be very careful, and you know what I'm talking about out there. I'm going to be very careful, very laser-like and precise, and, very deft and diplomatic, if you will, to kind of weave through this and really unpack it, but do it in a way that, like I said, is diplomatic. But we are right now, I don't care if you're talking about politically, economically, there's other aspects to this too, where there are no more easy choices. The hard choices, as they would, to borrow a phrase, actually, this is perfect, to borrow a phrase from Game of Thrones, winter's coming. No, winter's here. Winter is here. And if you, let's tee this up. If you look at the political stuff, right, you had this thing, and I caught, and I'll bring in Paul here in a second. I caught this thing with Megyn Kelly and the Ruthless podcast and Josh Holmes and Comfortably Smug and all blah, 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 blah. And the insiders are going to be cool. They're going to do a podcast. Dude, you know how, listen, they're way more popular than me. That's great. They got more, whatever. Let me just tell you, dude. If they didn't have that insider little put, I'm not here to be a punk. But it's not about any of that. It's not about me. Let's deal with the content of what they were saying. And the content of what they were saying was something to the effect of like, well, Megyn and DePaul, and this is where I really have an issue with Megyn Kelly. One of them. It's like, one is like, look, are you doing an audition to get back on TV? Just get back on TV. If you really love this form and medium, like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson's announced his media company. He's doing his thing. He's getting it going. Then do that. If it's something different, people can understand. Are you trying to be the TV star? Or are you trying to actually talk to people in an unfiltered way without the corporate media telling you what to do? Those are very, very different things. Very different goals. Very different feels to those broadcasts. You understand? Right or wrong, you can say I'm terrible, I'm great, I'm amazing, I'm a talent, I'm a savant, I'm a clown. But everybody who listens to this show understands I'm not doing an audition for Fox News here. You get me? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be the guest on the Gutfield show or something on the weekend and work my way up. I'm not trying to get my intern slot. I'm not punking anybody out. I'm just saying it's a very different goal. Okay? And when you're on the air, let me just tell you, and I will lend up myself, I will borrow from the great Rush Limbaugh, right? The audience can tell. The audience is smart. The audience can tell. So that leads me back to this ruthless podcasting with Megyn Kelly. And Megyn Kelly, and listen, Tucker can do a little bit of this too. But listen, I mean, there's a couple affectations with Tucker that I'd wish that he would tune a little bit. But Tucker's so great and does so many things. Well, I don't care. I do. We all have our little ways of doing things, shticks, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But every guest is not the most wonderful and 100% right, and that's so brilliant, and that's so awesome, and everyone's great. They're not. You might be happy you have them on, but anyway, I'm jumping ahead. So with this Ruthless podcast, it really basically only came down to this. And this is where I'm going with all this. The polls are so devastatingly strong for Trump. As I've said, how many weeks do I have to come on the air here at Newstalk 1040? And if you want to join me, if you have something to say, you can call me up at 1040 right now. 727-587-1040. 727-587-1040. How many weeks do we have to go over and over and over and over and over and over? And Haley's up and she's surging and this one and DeShantis and they're rebooting. And dude, it does. Here's the bottom line. Up, down, sideways, this person's up third place, fourth place, this place. This is like Trump keeps adding to his lead. And the only thing they could try to hang their hat on was, well, there's a poll that did independence, and if Trump is convicted by a jury, then the polls would totally change. And it really almost seemed like this, crazy, clue. Colonel Mustard in the kitchen with the wrench on the full moon, as the at the summer solstice, and I mean it was just, it's like, dude. First of all, when is that going to happen? Number one. Number two, after Trump rips off so many wins and stuff like that, you're done, dude. There's this ridiculous poll out of New Hampshire where all of a sudden Nikki Haley's gained tripled her lead. She's so close to Trump. It's close now. Nothing's close, dude. Do not believe that. So reality has really, really hit there. You've got polls by Fox News. Fox News' polls are showing Trump with this insanely commanding lead. And we'll talk about that in a second. Similarly, you're having now information come out. What did I tell you? When the student loans are going to hit, it's going to be a problem. Bunch of people. There's problems in this economy, player. Big problems. Let me turn down this gain a little bit more. Big problems. Okay? It is not even close. It's not even there's so many things going on right now that are just super rough, bro. Super rough. Okay, I mean, I'm seeing people out there. It's like you can feel this economy is hitting a wall. I wish it was wrong. I'm not giving anyone financial advice, any kind of advice, etc. I'm a talk show host. I'm giving my opinion. But it's like I'm seeing things out there where, I'm just seeing things out there. I know for dealership, it's getting tough. It's getting slow. People, if you had a low payment and now the payment's going to be way higher. People are giving cars back. It's getting rough. And I'm not all about doom and gloom, but numbers are numbers. It's just affordability. And I agree with that. I mean, I believe in fundamental analysis, right? And it's like, if people can't afford a house, they're not going to buy a house. So when the investors are out or just stop or slow down, things can just change super quick. And I think it's the same thing on the rest of the economy. Like, I'm just seeing it. Like, there is a palpable difference between the feeling, the vibe with around Thanksgiving and now. From a retail perspective, and you just see it out there, it does not feel anything like the week before Christmas. And it is the week before Christmas, and we're happy about that. And happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. If I don't get a chance to talk to you, I'm trying to put together some special broadcasts for next week. So the show will be on, but we're going to figure something out. So, yeah, it's getting very real. Let me bring in Paul F. Villarreal right now because we got about 4 minutes to the break here, first break. And there's so much we're going to talk about today. So you're going to stay with me here. Paul, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? I mean, I'm feeling like it's getting super, super real in terms of, at this point, what are you going to do? You can't stop Trump. You can't stop Biden, from their respective nominations. It's getting very, very challenging out there economically. And I think now it's like, those things are actually pretty linked, right? It goes back to the old Clinton thing. It's the economy stupid, right? And it's like, if the economic, I feel like support for Biden is evaporating very fast. And if the economy gets much worse for much longer, I don't see how his polls stay together at all, right? I mean, I think it's going to be really, really bad. Similarly, it's like, there's this hope that the lawfare, and if this happens, and if that happens, and if Haley wins New Hampshire, and then somehow South Carolina, but we're not even thinking about South Carolina, because it all changed out South Carolina. I mean, the only hope she really has is, DeSantis, nobody's even talking about DeSantis anymore. And he just lost someone from the super PAC. There's all kinds of things going on with that. But dude, we are less than a month out, and it's all coming down right now. How do you read this?
Yeah, look, I do agree with you. I think that reality is hitting, and it is difficult out there. Things just cost a lot, whether it's a home or food or whatever you're talking about. It costs a lot. Now, it's kind of out of sync because the markets are doing great right now. Like, the markets are hitting all-time highs, but the average person isn't feeling that. I can tell you around here where I'm at, people do not feel like that. And that's what you're seeing in these polls reflecting that, they're extremely unhappy with the economy and how Biden is handling the economy. I'm with you all the way. I think that if people do not feel better about things in a very short period of time, because as you know, people lock in their votes early, some of them. If that doesn't change quickly, Biden's going to have a big problem. And we'll talk more about that.
Definitely. We're going to talk more about that. There's no doubt about it. And it's really, like I said, this is no longer, there's no more debates. There's these little town halls or whatever like that. Vivek is out there just crushing on CNN and stuff like that. Like, you're out of ammo, okay? And when I saw that Ruthless podcast thing on Megyn Kelly, I'm like, I know, I'm sure Megyn Kelly's trying to be polite to her guests. I get it. I understand that. But even like, she's done some really good things lately too. So, I don't know. It's a mixed bag there, in terms of like, I still feel that she's trying to get back on. I feel like she's trying to get back on a network somewhere. Well, I'm not alleging anything. I wouldn't be surprised if, her show still feels a little too insider to me. She does have obviously she's got talent. I do like that she asks some tougher questions in there. I do like that she can challenge. Look, I don't know. It just depends. And I just do. Any given show, any given week, I have a different vibe on different take on Megyn Kelly. But I wasn't really impressed with this week because it's like, how can you even let them sit there and say that? Like, it just doesn't add up. It's like saying 2 + 2 = 5 because it's like, what planet are you on? The better question would have been like, every indication is that Trump's going to, and she did some pushback, but it's like every indication is going to be that Trump's going to win. If he wins the nomination, you're going to support him? Josh Holmes, former chief of staff, I believe, for who? Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Are you going to support him comfortably smug? Who do you think can win? Etc. Roll that out. Like, let's have a real conversation because it's time, dude. It's time. It's time for a break right now. But it's still time to listen to the John D. Villarreal Show. In 6 minutes, we're going to talk about all this some more. There's so much to talk about. I love it. We're just getting started. There's so much going on right here. Newstalk 1040 AM, the John D. Villarreal Show. Here on Newstalk 1040 AM and live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. We will be back in 6 minutes. Stay tuned.
It's Christmas and family.
What's important to you?
And motorcycle
It's college
Okay, what's up? Tampa Bay area, Newstalk 1040 audience. It's me, John D. Villarreal here. We're talking about so many things. We're talking about reality hitting the economic reality, the political reality. We're talking about Megyn Kelly, Donald Trump, the polls, everything. There's so many different things happening right now. Let me lay some things out here and bring Paul back in here right now in a second. So basically, it's like this. The polls are very, very devastating. You've got Donald Trump. If I read this right, and Paul can correct me, as I know he's been on top of this, the whole time here. He's been on top of this. You have Donald Trump, who is just crushing. Fox News' own poll is so devastating. Right here. Here we go. Fox News, okay? From 12:10 to 12:13. 69% for Trump. 69% for Trump, okay? 12% for DeSantis. 9% for Haley. My daughter just came in here, and my wife as well. So, I mean, that is so crazy. That is super, super high. This is the biggest lead ever. Now, you've got Haley and DeSantis that are kind of really, really close. You have on the DeSantis campaign, well, not campaign, you have the super PAC that I think that some person just stepped down there. You've got it, by all these polls, the combined polls, the RCP average, you've got Trump up over 50%. I mean, so this is where I have a problem with Megyn Kelly and the Ruthless podcast. Well, if Trump is convicted by a jury, they keep running these different formulations, almost, in my opinion, these push polls to try to find some way where if this happens, then Trump's out, and we're gonna, and then the second place where the establishment candidate, whether it's Haley or whomever, it's gonna be cool. And now it's Haley. And listen, Paul can have his comment here on DeSantis. You're seeing the DeSantis campaign. I think DeSantis had a great showing for what it was in the last debate, but that's not showing up in the polls. Is it too little too late over there? I really felt like he finally found his voice again, leaned on his record, but you've got momentum for Haley, sort of, right? But this is all the momentum. Haley's surging. If Haley's surging, then what's Trump doing? Because whatever she's getting support from the DeSantis crew. You're having a lot of donors and never Trumpers and establishment people coming on over there to the in terms of supporting the Haley, but Trump is widening his gap, so none of it matters. So it's almost like this weird, I don't know what you want to call it. Like they're talking about the different, they're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic on these campaigns. It does not matter. Again, similarly, we have serious news on the economic front, and it is really, really hitting super hard and impacting. And I just feel like there is a very connected relationship. I'm not going to say direct, but very connected relationship between the economy and these polls. And when you look at things like, and there's stuff going on in the White House too. You had the whole cocaine thing in the White House. In D.C. in general, right? And you've got this, I don't even know if we're going to get into it, but you got this story out of Capitol Hill, okay? And then you have Vivek was talking about the whole thing with Abby Phillips, if I'm right. I may be wrong. She was trying to get him on a bunch of stuff, January 6th, and they release new tape from inside the Capitol. A lot of these narratives are starting to crumble. And I think I saw something, hat tip to the liberal hive mind, the specifics. But it's kind of an interesting video. Where was this video? Here's the thing. The news media used to be about the news, right? New York Times, what's its moniker? All the news that's fit to print. This seems kind of relevant, right? And very relevant. And someone said, yeah, who's that dude with a backpack? Like, where were they? And then the Ray Epps, and there's different things. And And Vivek said some stuff, and Paul follows a little more closely than I do. I was working today, so I don't want to misspeak. But I will say this, you have polls that are now like, there's enough questions. I think a majority of people think that the government was somehow involved to some degree, and Paul will clarify what I'm saying here, and I can revise and extend what I'm saying, and I'm not alleging anything, but I'm going off my recollection, my paraphrasing, my opinion of what I thought the polling said. What I'm saying is that the narrative on January 6th is crumbling. The American people have questions, but as important as anything, they want to move on. They don't care what Kinzinger and Pelosi and Liz Cheney, all of whom are one way or another kind of out of power of what they were, what they were before. Like, the American people don't care. You know what they do care about? They care about the border. They care about fentanyl. They care about the kids. They care about the economy. They care about jobs. Now, all of a sudden, like, robots are taking over stuff. AI. People are getting downsized. We have a border that's out of control. We've got crisis in Ukraine, crisis in Israel, Middle East. We've got, questions about what's going to happen with a lot of places. We've got, problems in Africa. We've got problems in South, and you're seeing changes. You're seeing changes all over the world, changes in Argentina, changes in the Netherlands. You're seeing, you're seeing a crisis over there in Ireland. This is real life. And people, the fantasy of green everything and windmills and solar, powering, the universe, it's not happening. And so, you've had these years of elites trying to force people to do stuff. And people are just tired of it. And you're at a point now where it can all collapse politically. And I think that we're very close to that. And I think you're seeing it right now. And I think if something isn't changed quickly, and you're feeling it too with the Democrat, look at the comments from Van Jones. Look at the comments from Carville. Look at the comments out there, Bill Maher. Not to mention, we're still working through and dealing with the Harvard thing, and these protests and that division on the Democratic side is very real and not going anywhere, dude. Paul, come on in here. What are your comments on this?
Yeah, well, as far as the polling goes, I've seen two figures, and it says 61% or 80%, but both clear majorities believe the government had some role in January 6th. So yes, and 80% of the people want all the January 6th tapes released. This polling was done months ago, before they started releasing some of the January 6th tapes.
Time out one second. Hold on a second. Let me just say this. Because he just said something super important there, and he's going to come right back. But I want to focus on that. Listen. This isn't the Bannon War Room, we don't get into that. And to borrow their phrase over there, I don't believe in conspiracies, but there's no coincidence. Okay, but I don't get into this type of stuff. This isn't that kind of show. This isn't the Art Bell overnight in the high desert, and we don't do that. But, not but. Side new point. What he just said there, I want you to, Newstalk 1040 audience, I want you to listen to that. And I want you to think about that. And I dare anybody to call me at 727-587-1040. And all the liberals there in St. Pete, Tampa, you hate, whoever, you don't like Trump, give me one good reason. And I don't want to hear some sources and methods and sources. Give me one good reason why we shouldn't see all of, or at least as much as absolutely possible, of the footage from January 6th. What good reason would we have as the American public to not see that? What good reason? What on earth? It was a public place, right? We paid for it, the Capitol. We paid for that. Outside is certainly public. These are public situations. There wasn't, what are you going to tell me that there's that somehow, whatever that 400, 480p or 720p or HD or regular, that you're going to be able to see. There's some document there in black and white. It's all the way in the corner. Great. Then fuzz that out. Dude, give me a break. What possible legit reason is there to not to see that? I don't want to see the best hits, the redacted, what they want to. What good reason is there to not see that footage? And listen, prove me wrong. I'm cool. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But when you're holding that information back, it starts to feel like the War of the Worlds. H.G. Wells, right? The aliens have landed. It's a world war. It's oh my gosh, and spaceships, this and that, whatever. And it's just people are terrified, and they're inside their house, and then they open the door, and there's nothing there. Paul, go ahead. Would you comment on that and continue?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. Look, I think Vivek is a good representation of the evolving thinking on this issue. Vivek is saying, look, I didn't think this, now I think this. Now I think that there's real evidence that this could be a different type of situation than what I thought it was. And they've already said, and I'm talking about Speaker Mike Johnson, he's already said, look, if we need to blur out faces and all, we'll do it. So if you want to protect people...
That's what I said. That's exactly. If you need to do that, do that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's all I'm saying. So I think more transparency is good. And I'll tell you another thing that's really, I think, hurt this whole thing in the minds of the public is all of the January 6th committee evidence got destroyed or it's gone. So it's like, well, why did you do that? Why would you do that? I mean, you think you want to keep that, especially now you got Trump on trial. Why wouldn't you want to have that evidence preserved? And people are like, well, yeah, why'd they do that?
Dude, it's weird. It's weird. And then we're having a little bit of an echo there. I don't know if your side or the studio stuff like that. Just want to make that aware. It's a weird deal, dude. And a lot of people are questioning. But meanwhile, people are just over it. And this is the thing, is that we're at a point now where people, it goes back to the same thing, and people picked up on this theme, and Tucker's talked about it, other people talked about it. It's like, dude, the idea that you can run a campaign, well, I'm going to say a couple things first, and I'm going to from 20, 30 years ago, it's done, dude. The Haley thing, the Chris Christie, like it's just done. And people don't want that. Similarly, like people feel like that there's a disconnect between, I'll say it this way, there's a disconnect between Washington, D.C. and themselves and their lives and what they want and what they're experiencing out there. And when you fail to, when you are disconnected from what the public wants, then that's not a good thing. That's not a good political recipe, particularly in an election year. And you can only sort of fearmonger people for so long. Threat to democracy and Trump's the word. Dude, what? Trump's a threat to democracy, but we won't release all the information. Trump's a threat to democracy, but you can't go, you can't travel where you want. Trump's a threat to democracy, but you got to wear a mask. Trump's a threat to democracy, you got to have a shot. Trump's a threat to democracy, you can't know what your kids are doing. I mean, we can go on down the list. What's the real threat? Trump's a threat to democracy, but we got to send another $100 billion to Ukraine. What? I mean, Trump's such a democracy. We're gonna indict the political rival. It's weird, bro. Like it's just, I don't want to go do the whole show on this, but it's like what I'm saying is, it's really gotten to the point now where it's just not working, and it's not going to work, and I just don't understand how it's not super obvious. Now, there are some stories out there now, Paul, where people are sort of DC's resigning to the fact that Trump's going to be back in office. So they're trying to position ahead of time, get some bills passed through Congress and do some different things to kind of tie his hands maybe like they did before. I guess that's maybe the better question. Do you think, Paul, because you follow this stuff and you're big on X right now, formerly Twitter, to what extent has reality hit? Is there an understanding in the RNC and the DNC that it's going to be Biden and Trump running again? Number one. Number two, do they still think they can pull off this Haley DeSantis thing, whatever like that? That's number one. Number two, do you think, to what extent does Washington and the corporate media think that Trump's going to be reelected? Like, I mean, where are we at with? I want to know where we're at with the level of realism. I also want to talk about, remind me, I want to talk about Dave Chappelle. I've been watching some of Dave Chappelle's specials, and I think he's a very important voice, and he actually has a special coming up on New Year's Eve. So there's that on Netflix. But I mean, what's the level of realism in the different parties and in DC right now, Paul?
Okay, first, and just so you know, I'm aware. Hopefully, everything's cool now on the audio. The establishment Republicans are still trying to get a real push for Nikki Haley, and that is, as you said, it's going to be focused in New Hampshire and South Carolina, which are two of the first four contests run. She's not even trying in Iowa. She's just not trying that at all. So it's all this. In fact, she's constantly appearing now on radio and TV with Governor Chris Sununu. It's like they're linked at the hip now. So it's all about New Hampshire for her. And then, of course, it'll all be about South Carolina. I think most people, if you gave them true serum, would tell you that it's pretty much over. Like we said before, Ted Cruz won 11 states in 2016, and he didn't win. So even if she won a state or a couple states, I mean, what's that going to do? What's it really going to do? So, the Ruthless podcast people in that circle, yes, they're hoping against hope that they can make some quick end around and change it all. But I think a lot of people don't think that's going to happen. And I will tell you this. There's been discussion about Nikki Haley as a potential VP for Trump, and I can tell you the MAGA people are 100% against that. I mean, I have literally seen people on X saying, if Trump does that, I'm not voting for him. That's how much they don't like Nikki Haley. And her polls, some of the polls look decent and everything, but the pollster that I follow, who's very good, is like, those polls are not going to hold up. That's basically like a generic Republican. Once people get to know her, those numbers are coming down. So when you see Trump versus Biden and Haley versus Biden, sometimes Haley looks better, but that's not how it's going to shake out in the end. And he definitely knows what he's talking about. As far as does Washington think Trump is going to get reelected, one of the bills that they're trying to get through is, I believe this is what it is, the U.S., the president cannot pull out of the of NATO unless it goes through Congress. So, yeah, that's a pretty good indicator that they think Trump might get back in, because Trump has talked before about pulling out of NATO. So that is an indicator right there, along with other bills that I can't remember right now. Yeah, look, I mean, Trump's in a great groove. He's in a really good groove. And sure, I mean, if he lost New Hampshire, that would hurt. But the poll that came out, the poll that has Haley down on, what is it, like 17 points, whatever, like closing the gap. I saw somebody analyzing that today, saying that it oversampled moderates and independents. I don't know if that's true or not, but the person's pretty good at they're pretty good at calculating things. And of course, that would help Haley then. The way that this primary is going to shake out is that Haley's going to try like heck to get moderates and independents, and Trump's going to roll with conservatives. So in the end, there's probably more conservatives, and that's probably how it's going to go.
Gotcha. Now, here's the thing: if we believe all this, okay, fair enough. How do I say this? What do you think is going to happen in 2024? Because a lot of people they think that it could just be, I mean, we see these election years all kinds of things, protests. We see all kinds of, I mean, it seems like for the last 12, 15, 16 years, as we get closer to election times, all kinds of things happen. We've always been, there's been the October surprise thing for a while, but it's almost like there's like a whole year of October surprises. I mean, do you think that 2024 could get really silly? I mean, what do you expect to see, I guess, is what I would say. What do you expect to see? Do you think that when Trump starts winning, then what? I mean, we've already seen Jack Smith, jumping over appeals courts, going right to the Supreme Court. Hey, we need a rule on this. I think you were saying something to me that even Democrats are like, this is looking a little like, I mean, what's the rush, Jack? What's the big rush?
Yeah.
And you're seeing like a lot of things like that. I mean, like, what do you expect for 2024? And we have about a couple minutes left here before the break.
Okay, so I expect, in terms of the protest and that type of thing, what we saw in 2020 was that after the BLM protest, and then some of the, what I would characterize as riots, that had a backlash. That started to hurt the Democrats leading up to the election. And so what happened is they pulled back because there was a plan, and that's what I've read, there was a plan to do more protesting around the election, and they pulled back off that because they started seeing it was hurting them in the polls. I kind of have a hard time thinking that they're going to try to do heavy protest. Look, I mean, anything could happen. We know this, especially if they think Trump's going to win. But I think that would favor Trump because Trump is the law and order candidate here. So if people think, things are going nuts, they're going to move to Trump, in my opinion. As far as the legal stuff, the Supreme Court just took up a case. I believe the name of the case is Fisher. It has to do with somebody that was involved in January 6th, and it's about I think it's about the obstructing Congress statute, whatever, which apparently was written, and it had nothing to do with that. It was something like hiding documents or something with Enron, something like this. So it was not supposed to be about something like this. It's gotten stretched. But what good lawyers I have heard said was, look, what this does is it pushes back the Trump trial because 2 of the 4 counts of his involve this statute. So in other words, what these people are saying is, this is a way for the Supreme Court to kind of kick the ball down the road and deal with the Trump stuff without dealing with it directly. Now, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. I think some of these people believe a ruling on this will come out in June, so, the trial could start soon after that. But maybe it doesn't end before the election. And so if it doesn't end before the election, I mean, okay, he'd still have to spend a lot of time in court, but there's no verdict. There is no verdict. You're going to see everything you can legally against Trump. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. I just don't know, except for this New York case, which is a civil case on the fraud. I don't know if you're going to have any verdicts. If you don't have any verdicts, then what do you have? So those are the things, the protest, the legal. Look, Biden is in huge trouble. I think I said it about 2 weeks ago. He was actually, he upkicked slightly in his polls. Now he's cratering. I mean, just crashing. And I think, I don't know if you mentioned it, basically it was leaked or said to the Wall Street Journal, hey, Obama's worried that Joe might lose.
I just said that. I saw that on Fox News. Let me say something real quick. Sorry, and we'll pick you up again on the other end of the hour on the break. But it's like, look, I think 2 things that people aren't thinking about. You have to think 3-dimensionally, even 4-dimensionally, and you have to think in with the time component here. And that is this: when Trump starts winning, and as they keep talking about these trials and the polls and politics, how it's going to affect it, just looks more and more political when they kind of marry those things together there in the press, if you will, and with the timing, number one. And number 2, when Trump starts winning, I think that the people, particularly on the Republican side, are going to feel very differently about this as they keep trying to prosecute these cases against Trump as he's literally on his way to become the Republican nominee. It's going to feel very different than the American people, I believe. Hey, you're listening to the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook as well. Stay tuned. 5 o'clock hour coming up. We'll be back in 6 minutes.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new. News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news. USA News, I'm John Schaefer. Today, the Supreme Court pays tribute to the late Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. Her body will be placed in repose within the Great Hall of the building, allowing the public to express their condolences before a funeral service scheduled for tomorrow at the Washington National Cathedral. Justice O'Connor, the trailblazing first woman on the Supreme Court, passed away on December 1st at the age of 93. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the U.S. supports Israel's right to self-defense. However, he emphasizes that Israeli forces must make every effort to minimize civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip, even with Hamas using them as shields.
Hamas embeds itself and hides
Lighter winds, a high 63.
Ask questions every
We're about 1 minute out. 1 minute out. Hey, what's up, everyone? John D. Villarreal here. John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 a.m. Wife's helping me over here on the side here. I'm tuning the video a little bit, trying to improve it. Week by week, we're gonna get better and better and better. I've got all kinds of different things planned. We might have big news here soon. Big news here for the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 and also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So listen. We've been talking about all kinds of stuff. We've been talking about like where we're at. I mean, we need to run down some of these polls. We've been talking about reality really hitting what's happening right now. What do we think for 2024? And really, like, we may have to really talk about that next week because we're almost out of this year. Okay, it's been a crazy year, but let's talk about Ron DeSantis. Now, Governor DeSantis. There's a bunch of things we need to go over. What we talked about last hour was how Donald Trump is just dominating in the polls, how the economy is getting worse, how Biden is losing in 7 of the swing states, some by 10 points. Like, it's just all crumbling very, very fast. And I asked anybody, like, you know, give me a reason, give me something, give me anything, any real reason as to why we shouldn't hear or see the tapes, all the tapes from, J6. Now, as Speaker Johnson said, you know, if we need to blur out this and that, whatever, then yeah, that's of course, that's fine. But there should be the maximum transparency possible, right? That's what, this is public property. This is a thing of great national importance. Like, this is a major thing. If you want, and I asked them, you know, call in the News Talk 1040 line. Like, hit me up at 727-587-1040. 727-587-1040. What is the reason? Give me a good reason why we shouldn't see that. Because what's weird is the more we see of these tapes, the more questions that seem to pop up. And I don't want to get mired down in this, but I mean, the people that were pushing this stuff, you know, Kinzinger and Cheney and Pelosi just aren't looking so great. There was a whistleblower who had some things out there and has a statement, and another whistleblower. That's very interesting. But I want to get down into this campaign as well. And this is just some stuff, and Paul can comment on some of this stuff. If you look at some of the campaign 2024, Governor DeSantis could be some trouble there. Right? Jeff Rowe, who was running the Never Back Down chief strategist, maybe not running it, but the chief strategist, he's out at the super PAC. Christine Pushaw, this is an interesting person, okay? I believe that there is, I may be wrong, I'm not alleging anything, this is my recollection, my opinion, I'm a talk show host, and she's a public figure, but I think there was like a picture of her in Ukraine, years ago with elections. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And now she's doing something for Governor DeSantis here. And I think she was kind of dissing Governor DeSantis on X with the tweet, and then it got deleted. It's very weird, right? And then there was like this comment about Trump challenging some results and from that campaign and stuff. And I don't know, dude. And then like Casey, like I don't understand what's going on here. And I really, really like Governor DeSantis's performance in the last debate, but there's some stuff going on there. Now all of a sudden, Nikki Haley and Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, they just seem like it's like a almost like a buddy movie going on now. They're all over the place in New Hampshire together and stuff. And this CBS poll where Trump's at 44, Nikki Haley's at 29, and DeSantis at 11. I don't believe that at all. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that anywhere. And in fact, there's some people that are questioning those numbers. Meanwhile, Trump is just really doing well. He's all over Iowa and stuff like that. And listen, Iowa's it's the first contest. You blow out Iowa, the narrative changes. Then we have real results. Then it's not just polls. And I just feel like it's just gonna be tough, dude. Here's the bottom line for me: Trump blows out Iowa. He's got momentum. Trump then, and here's the other thing to think about for all the Trump haters out there and the Democrats and stuff. We're almost at a point where the media is going to have to cover Trump, and we're going to see Trump on air a lot. This is Donald Trump dominating with a very Trump light media presence. That's almost going to end. This is like maximum push for Haley and DeSantis, stuff like that. One or both of them may get a little bit more as we get close, but I mean, we're really close now. Okay, to Trump being back in the spotlight. And we're getting very short on time. If Trump wins Iowa by a lot, New Hampshire by anything, South Carolina by anything, it's totally over. It's already pretty much over, players. I told you it's over. There's nothing foreseeable. There's nothing reasonably foreseeable that I see changing this race anytime soon. Because all those other people can talk about is, New Hampshire, South Carolina, New Hampshire, South Carolina. There is no plan after that. These campaigns are falling apart as we speak. Nobody's talking about Chris Christie. And you also have another problem out there for the Trump haters. You still have Vivek. You still have Vivek Ramaswamy that's not going away. And it's just, I'm just telling you, dude, it's getting very, very, very tough out there for the Trump haters. So that's what's going on right there. Paul, what do you think about all that? I mean, where do you feel, before we get into Biden and some of these other things out there, like what do you think about where we're at with these polls and these different campaigns? There's a lot of news coming out, a lot of commentary.
Yeah, I feel like you do about the CBS New Hampshire poll that has Haley within 15 of Trump. I don't think that's right. And as I said to you, somebody analyzed that and said they felt that they oversampled moderates and independents, which would favor Haley. We'll see. But I just find that difficult to believe. As you mentioned with DeSantis, look, I think DeSantis is going to be effectively, I mean, he's already basically done, but I think he's going to really be done after Iowa because his entire strategy was about Iowa. Right now, Trump is getting ready to crush in Iowa, and their strategy is to run up the numbers in Iowa, like really try to just send a message about, the rest of the field, like it's over right from the beginning. You said about Christina Pushaw. Christina Pushaw used to work as Governor DeSantis' press secretary. Then they switched her into kind of their quote-unquote war room, quick reaction room. And yes, she's put up a tweet that's basically saying, we're not going to win any states, and I can't believe I'm working for somebody like this, which is totally ridiculous. Pushaw, DeSantis took her in. DeSantis hired her because she wrote a takedown piece about that Rebecca Jones woman who was like trying to slander whatever DeSantis. That's how she got hired by him. You mentioned her in Ukraine. That is correct. She helped Zelensky. I think she helped Zelensky get elected, but she definitely was over there working with Zelensky. That is absolutely true. You mentioned earlier about Never Back Down. Yes, Jeff Rowe is the chief strategist who stepped down. Basically, people are leaving the ship. So, right. DeSantis is essentially done, and in less than a month, it'll pretty much be official. Look, the thing with Trump is he's everywhere. I mean, this past Saturday, he had a huge rally in New Hampshire, probably like 6,000 people. Massive, especially for a state like that that's not very big. He does that rally. He flies out to UFC 296. He goes to that. The next day is he does another like gathering in Nevada, which I forgot about. It's like he's all over the place. He's picking up steam now. And what's amazing is people can't keep up with him. And he's a guy that's 77 years old. So he's just cruising right now. And I really like their campaign team. I think their campaign team is extremely thorough, really good. They're not leaving anything to chance. They're doing everything they need to do. I just think they're running a great race. And, look, we have to see what happens in New Hampshire. We have to see what happens in South Carolina. There's going to be a huge push for Haley. We know Americans for Prosperity and the Koch network, Wall Street. These people are coming in for her. And so they're going to do everything they can do. We also should mention CNN and ABC are both having debates, supposedly debates, within 1 week of the New Hampshire thing. Who do you think that's going to help? I mean, it's not going to help Trump because he's not going to participate. So those are kind of, almost those help Nikki Haley, essentially. So everything that can be done will be done. Is it going to be enough? No, I don't think so. The best thing that you could hope for, if you're a Nikki Haley fan or if you're never Trump, is to hold him down from getting enough delegates before the convention. That would be the hope. I just don't think that's a realistic thing right now. But look, we both know. We know how the donors are. They want that push-button solution. They're going to try as long as they can try and as long as it's viable. So if everything goes the way we think it's going to go, this will be over by the end of February, which is when the South Carolina primary is. That's what I see right now. And coming back to Biden, I was talking about this before the break. Yes, you saw the thing about Obama's concern that Joe might not win. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if they're trying to prod him to do better. I don't know if they're still trying to get him to drop out. We know David Axelrod, who was Obama's strategist, said that a number of times. Bill Ackman, who has been in the news, billionaire investor, who has been in the news a lot recently with all these elite colleges, particularly Harvard, which he is a double graduate of. He said in a recent interview that he thinks Biden should not run. So there's still people trying to get Joe out. And I understand that, but as we've talked about, if you put somebody like Newsom in, he's not going to win. Newsom is not going to win in a state like Pennsylvania. I guarantee you that. First of all, people aren't going to like the California policies, but also he looks like a slickster. And that doesn't play well here. It just does not play well here. So,
well, a couple of things.
There's this kind of.
Yeah, I'll say real quick, couple of things. I mean, Newsom had his audition, if you will. We still got to have an echo there.
Yeah.
With the whole debate with, DeSantis on Hannity, and I think he got crushed. And that failed miserably. And he tried some other stuff. And there was that video of him playing basketball and kind of quasi tackling this kid in China. Like it just, and I'm not, I don't like to do the gotcha, but I mean, the whole thing comes off. It just doesn't play in Peoria, as you're saying, right? And, out there. And I just don't, I think that there's way more hype than reality to Newsom. So I don't think that's there. But the other thing is like you were saying, I mean, with Trump, I mean, listen, dude, I just don't. I think that reality has really sunk in. I don't see anything changing. I do think that once we see results, and again, as we talked about, Ted Cruz won 8 states. I mean, these people, they think they're cool now, and they're coming up with these last minute, desperate strategies. But when people are winning, when Trump keeps winning in a serious way, plus, I mean, I think where we are at with reality and where we're at, I mean, remember, sometimes you have to break it down this simple. When Joe won, when President Biden won, we had COVID going on, we had stimulus cranking up, PPP, people, had benefits to stay home and all that type of stuff. That is all gone. We had pauses on student loans, foreclosure forbearance. All that's gone, dude. Or almost all of it's gone. people are really feeling pain now, and they've given this administration multiple years, and it's not working. We are down to a competency test. And the Democrats in this administration aren't doing that great in the American people's eyes. And you're seeing that reflected in the polls. What's the number one issue? It's not hard to understand what the number one issue is out there. And, I just don't see you escaping from it. This is not about, the problem of it is that we've grown up in a time in politics where so many people think it's all about spin and celebrity and narrative. And the thing is, you mentioned Obama, President Obama. Listen, I'm not one of these conspiracy things, whatever like that, but I will say two things. One is you have a lot of people that serve with Obama that are still kind of hanging around President Biden, or were. Susan Rice. I mean, you have similar people around, and the statements by President Obama, it just gives the feel that maybe. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze anyone, but my impression on someone on the other side, on the Republican side, Republican leaning, conservative leaning libertarian, it just feels like Obama gives off this vibe like he's still in charge. You know what I mean? I mean, am I reading that wrong, Paul? I mean, it just like in other words, like, why do we need a statement from Obama about Biden can lose this and stuff like that? Why do we need these repeated things? And where were the statements on a lot of other things that are going on there? Like you see these selective statements by President Obama, but you're seeing a lot of statements for an ex-president. And do I have that wrong? Am I perceiving that wrong, Paul?
No, I agree with you, particularly on certain things when it's some important issue he thinks he must weigh in. Yeah.
So I think that's just really, really weird. And then it's like, okay, I just don't think you're going to be able to spin your way out of this. I don't think you're going to be able to finesse your way out of this. I don't think you're going to be able to do rock concerts and all these other things. And I think that the whole protest thing, I think that's run its course too. And particularly when you're going to try to do this protest, I'm not saying they are, but if we start seeing a lot of protests, how are you going to square that with this, J6 threat to democracy theme that they're trying to push out there too? That's what I'm saying. It's not going to work. Just like you're not going to, you've got this issue from Israel that is really exposing a lot of inconsistent views on the left. It's 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. It's just not going to work. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying John, you're saying it's going to be easy. Trump's going to win walking away. I will say this now, with this last week or two. He could. I've said that before, but even more so. He could. It is falling apart so fast for Biden. You just don't understand it if you don't know how to read these things. And here's the other thing I will say about push on some of these other people in the campaigns. I'm jumping around a little bit, but it just came to mind. I've been involved in high level in campaigns, run campaigns, things like that, in my opinion. And I've been in politics a long time. I haven't done anything recently, but just because it's gotten a little too crazy in my opinion. But I like to think I was really, really good at that stuff. And I can understand, staffers thinking that they may be smarter or better positioned on an issue or had a better idea, better strategy than the candidate. I get that. There's times where, I thought I knew a lot of stuff and everything like that, but it's very unseemly, and you're seeing it more and more, where these staffers act like they're the main show. They know better than everyone. And some of that is just trying to prepare themselves for the next job and career protection or whatever it is, I guess. So I don't know. I'm speculating. But it just really comes off not good. It's like you need to take care of your client, for lack of a better word. It's very unseemly. And you're seeing the same thing in Capitol Hill, where you get these staffers that think that they're the main show. You're not the main show. Nobody elected you. So, I never liked that. If you got a strong opinion, you have a need to say, okay, But if it keeps happening over and over again, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not, that's not my biggest issue, but I think that's worth mentioning. And so this is what I'm trying to talk about. This is about competency. People are so dissatisfied with where we're at. And I feel like people, when you just talk to people, like people that don't like Trump, haven't voted for Trump, they are not happy with this current situation. And they are concerned about where we're at. And now stuff has gotten real on so many ranges of issues that this is not a little deal anymore, Paul. And so I just feel like we're at that point where, it's slipping away from them. And the question is, what's going to happen in 2024? Because what they're, the people that don't like Trump, whatever, politically it's not working. And so then the question is, what's next? But at the same time, like people are just like, have really had enough of this and they're kind of over it. There's a lot of other things that are happening as well, too. I mean, Biden, there's two sides of the equation here, and Biden's the other end of it. And you've got a Pew poll out there showing that he only has 33% approval rate of 33%. Remember, Morning Joe and Mika, and they were talking about, oh, Trump's so low at the low 40s. And dude, this is 10 points plus below that. Trump was so terrible, right? No presidents, but Trump was so, this is like the lowest ever, dude. I mean, and again, you talked about Bill Ackman of President Obama, like people are sounding the alarm on the Democratic side. I mean, it's bad, dude. And now you've got the impeachment inquiry right there. And I mean, that's the thing. How can you sit there with if you're a media talk about all these things against Trump, but you have all these stories and evidence, and stories out there on Biden, and then you have Hunter Biden went up to D.C. and had some statement outside of Capitol Hill. What was that about, Paul? That was really weird.
So what that was about, from what I heard, apparently Eric Swalwell, the Democratic representative, helped him with that, do that. What the assessment of that from lawyers was... Time out.
When you're taking advice from Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell, I question... I mean, that raises a question in my mind. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I agree. So the thinking was... he was able to say what he wanted to say without being under oath and risking perjury. That's what people thought what that was about. He's going to say what he wants, but he's not under oath. Okay,
fine, but I'm just talking about what was the net effect of that. The net effect of that, I don't think that was effective. I don't think that helped Hunter Biden at all. And in fact, no less than Jen Psaki went on one of the shows and was saying that the White House is like, they don't want him talking anymore. Well, no doubt, dude. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, this isn't, how is that doing anything? Like this is, it's, the whole thing is falling apart. It's so bad. It's unbelievably bad. Now, Vivek was getting into it. We have to, filter how we're going to do this here. Vivek was getting into it with Van Jones. How afraid is the left of Vivek Ramaswamy, Paul? We have we're going to, you know what? Let's hold that thought. To the final segment. Final segment's coming up, everybody. This is going to be great. We're going to talk about, we've been talking about more to talk about here at the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 AM. It's going to be a wild year. It's been a wild year. We're here for you. Stay tuned. Newstalk 1040, John D. Villarreal radio show. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 6 minutes.
News Talk 1040. News, talk, and information.
It's a little bit of everything.
When you want it.
A lot of news.
At the top and bottom of every hour.
Informative.
Everything that's going on.
News coverage.
Talk about the issues that matter most.
You learn about so many different things.
People's opinions. You know, they talk about the news.
What's going on in the world.
Talking about different issues.
I like hearing the news.
Weather.
A lot of news.
News you can count on. News Talk 1040.
Top of the hour, every hour.
Powered by newstalkflorida.com.
USA News Update. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the U.S. supports Israel's right to self-defense, but he emphasizes that Israeli forces must make every effort to minimize civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip, even with Hamas using them as shields.
Hamas is still holding hostages, including American citizens. Hamas embeds itself and hides itself behind innocent Palestinian civilians.
Austin says the U.S. remains committed to advocating for a two-state solution in the region. Pope Francis is paving the way for same-sex couples to receive blessings under specific conditions. In a landmark decision announced Monday, the Vatican stated that priests can bestow blessings on such couples as long as it is not a part of a regular church ritual. And Week 15 of the NFL concludes with Monday Night Football in Seattle, where the Seahawks will host the Eagles tonight. John Schaefer, USA News.
Attention! This is a public notice from the Social Security Disability Helpline. If you're one of the millions of Americans who are disabled and unable to work, you may be eligible for disability benefits from Social Security. Receiving benefits is your right. If you suffer from physical or mental disability, whether you're applying for the first time or you've already been denied, we can help. We'll evaluate your situation and deal with Social Security on your behalf. Best of all, there's no fee until you receive your benefits. Remember, we only get paid if you win your case. There are many reasons and conditions that may make you eligible for disability benefits. Many of them you may not be aware of. So if you're disabled and unable to work, call now to get started with your free, no-obligation consultation.
800-559-4185. 800-559-4185. 800-559-4185. That's 800-559-4185.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer. News Talk 1040, WHBO's Weather Center forecast. So we've got this cold fair weather system over the plains moving into Tennessee tomorrow, West Virginia Wednesday, and that's pulling down some much colder air. In fact, even a secondary dry cold front moving through now leaves us sunny, breezy this afternoon up to 66. Well, tonight's clear and colder at 45, still a bit breezy, and then tomorrow, sunny, lighter winds, a high 63. Wednesday, increasing late day clouds up to 70. Looks like a slight chance for Thursday afternoon shower, and over the Christmas weekend, a few Christmas Eve, Christmas Day showers. A cold front approaching here at News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan, it's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's John D. Villarreal. Final segment here on Newstalk 1040, the John D. Villarreal radio show here. And we've been talking about a lot of different things. I'm fooling around with my video settings. I can't decide if I like it one way or the other. We're fine-tuning. We're trying to get it better. I'm going to switch it back the other way and just see what it looks like. Oh, well, that's not the right way. Uh-oh. I may have messed that up. That's what happens when you try to do it in live. I may have messed that up. It is what it is. Anyway, let me see if I can kind of fix this again. But here's the bottom line. Last segment here, we're talking about a lot of different things. Now, one of the things I've been doing here is I've been talking about, I've been seeing here Dave Chappelle. And I've been looking at a lot of his older shows and stuff like that. And it's been really, really interesting, in my opinion, because Dave has really, I think, got his finger on the pulse of a lot of things and is very unafraid to say a lot of stuff out there. And that is very powerful. That is very powerful. And in so many ways, he just says, I don't condone everything. I'm not, whatever, all that. But he's able to cut through the noise, and just the reason why I think he's such an important voice right now is because things have gotten so fake and so askew and so away from reality that it's unbelievable. And we need a voice that can kind of shake people out of that groupthink and propaganda, if you will. And I think that's a lot of what Dave is doing and what Dave has done. And in that respect, I'm an optimist, an eternal optimist, and I always like to be that way. And I really feel like in some ways we're in a spot right now where things could get bad. And in some ways it could get a lot better. People are seeing where we're at. They're seeing the old tactics. In this way, you should be thankful. The old tactics aren't working. And I think, Paul, you had the quote or something like that. At first, they try to manipulate you, and when that doesn't work, they try to bully you or threaten you, something like that. I really feel like things could get worse, but they could be, and sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better, but it could get a lot better very, very quickly here. And again, that is the whole theme of Trump, right? MAGA, make America great again. And it's just, whether you sign on to that or not, or you think that's just a little too, you've got issues with that phraseology or whatnot. I think the main thing of it is that people want competency. They just want to be able to live their lives, be successful, put food on the table, and have government out of their lives and not have to have everything political and no privacy and all these types of things. Do you think we're at a point now where the dawn is about to break, if you will, Paul?
I do, yeah. And just to say, I also think Chappelle is great, and he has a voice, kind of a good and steady voice right now. I think things are in that zone. And I just saw something as I was looking through X here. It says Biden increasingly frustrated with the bad polls. Look, I understand what Democrats are thinking with him, which is how's it going to go back up? But like I said, I don't think you can put somebody else in there right now. Who would you put in? I mean, like we said, we're talking about Newsom. That's just not going to work. You're going to do Kamala. I mean, Joe was the only person, in my opinion, that could have beaten Trump in 2020. That's it, the only one. And he might be the only one now. So they're really stuck. And I think, again, from a social standpoint and from where people are at with their frustrations, I do think it's at a breaking point. I do think it's at a tough spot. And that's why I think you see his numbers crumbling like they are. You mentioned about things could turn around quickly. Trump, because I pay attention to a lot of his speeches. He's out there saying, when I get elected, you're going to see a dramatic upturn in the markets, and then 2025 is going to be an economic boom. So he knows that's what people want. That's what people are looking for. And look, let's be honest. That happened when he first got in. And, people like Paul Krugman were saying the market was going to crash and everything. Well, that's not what happened.
Correct.
So, yeah, he has got a track record.
He definitely has a track record. There's no doubt about it. And people know, this is what they're afraid of. Honestly, this could be the liberals' ultimate nightmare in so many ways. The people on The View and that kind of, it's like you had Trump, you had dramatic success, even though you said all these Nazi things about him and Russia collusion hoax and all this type of stuff. And then you had Biden and you've had the Green New Deal, you've had all these things, and it's just fallen super flat and been terrible. And we had peace and prosperity with Trump. Trump gets back in, and it's all great again. What does that do to the Democratic Party, Paul? It's got to be just devastating at that point.
Yeah, it is devastating. Look, they're in a bunch of trouble. I don't know how it's going to go for the generic, poll and the Democrats in the House and in the Senate, but Biden himself is in big trouble. Look, and if he goes down big, that might just carry down the ballot. There's no question that could happen. So I think that's something else your people are thinking about. You said about Obama, and it almost feels like he's still there. Well, he's said in some interview before, yes, it's almost like my third term because so many of my staffers are still there. Right, they are there, and I think people feel like they're there. So, I think we're kind of seeing like the natural cycle ending here on this kind of era. And, of course, the Democrats are going to try to extend it and string it out and keep hold of things. But right now it's not good. The economy before COVID hit, the economy under Trump was unbelievable. It was so good. One of the things you consistently see, and I remember watching a Newsmax segment on this recently. They went to the South Bronx, and they just asked random people, very diverse group of people. They're like, I had more money under Trump. Things were better under Trump. Like, everybody felt that. And I think I said it on the show last week. The people on the lower end feel it more. They need another $200 in a month. The people on the top, $200 is nothing. The people on the bottom, that's a lot of money. And if Trump is delivering that, they know that. They remember that. And so, yeah, he actually talked about supposedly maybe doing a rally in the South Bronx, which is unheard of for a Republican candidate. But the people like him there. And you probably saw that segment. So, yeah, I think, look, everything is setting up really well for Trump. And the legal stuff and them trying to switch out Joe, those are probably the last hopes. And I just don't see it right now. But, look, we never know what's going to happen.
We never know what's going to happen. There's no doubt about that. And I apologize for the audio there. I had to actually troubleshoot it a little bit. The camera. We're back live again on we're still live, but we have the video back up again on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And I think we figured out how to make it a little bit nicer there. Look, I'll get into all the technical stuff. There's a little bit of a trade-off between how bright I want the image to be versus, contrast and some other stuff. It's always some different things like that. So I feel like that's right. I feel like people, it's going to get tough, but I think that there was, listen, it's like, okay, you know what it's like kind of in a certain way? It's like the housing prices in the housing market. There's people like, oh, I'm rich, my house doubled and tripled. And that wasn't real. Now, if you were able to cash out and it, so like the cryptos, if it worked out for you, it worked out for you. But if it didn't work out for you, at some point it has to go back to some level of reality, because people flat out, a lot of people can't afford houses, period. That's what it is. They can't afford it. So you either believe that if you bought the house for $200,000 and you believe it's now worth $600,000 or $800,000, you can believe that. But what's someone really going to pay for it? And you either get the market back to something that it can actually transact at and be real at, Again, not giving any predictions, giving financial advice or anything like that. But similarly,
can I just say something on this?
Go ahead.
So on Unusual Whales today, and I saw this, and you can check it out, like just scroll down there. Yeah, from Newsweek, house prices are in free fall in dozens of major U.S. cities, with new buyers, often young families, losing some between $70,000 to $120,000. How do you think if you go and you buy a house and instantly it's down $100,000? I mean, that's unbelievable. That's crazy.
That's crazy. And a lot of these people have the student loans that are now kicking in. I mean, this is what I'm saying. People do not appreciate the economic Armageddon that people are feeling. You know, millennials, Gen Z, stuff like that. And now you have to go back to, and the same thing. Like some of these people have to sell because now, remote work is gone. It's return to office. You got to, if you move to Florida, you got to move back up north or something like that. You have to sell the house. You're not going to be able to rent it out for what you're going to lose money one way or the other. And this is what I'm talking about. This becomes now reality and competency. Reality and competency. That's what it is. Reality and competency and the inability to gaslight and fool people. And in that, situation, you throw in Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy, Paul, I mean, he's not going to win, but he's proven to be a super force. And I think he's just really crushing people out there and crushing these liberal narratives. And he's become a huge thorn in the side for Nikki Haley. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And let me just say one more thing about the economy stuff. Now, I think they're trying to get another $60 billion sent over to Ukraine. I was reading an economist analyzing that. He's like, look, that's going to surge inflation even more. It's like, but are you not thinking about this? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Yes, Vivek is clearly the person in this election cycle who has helped himself the most. He is brilliant. He's a great speaker. He's an excellent lawyer. You can tell that. Nobody can deal with him. And so Van Jones, who is a lawyer himself and a good speaker, he's scared of Vivek. He's scared of Vivek, which is why he's been coming at him. He's saying, he's a demagogue and all these things. It's like Vivek is 38 years old. I mean, he's going to be around a long time. He's only going to learn more. I think Vivek is a force, as you said, and Trump shouted him out in a recent rally saying, I like Vivek, and Vivek likes me. So yeah, Vivek is amazing. He is really, really talented.
He's very, very talented, no doubt about it. We called that one early as well. And again, if you want to be ahead of the game, you just listen to the John D. Villarreal radio show here and live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook here on Newstalk 1040. If you want to call in, let us know right now, 727-587-1040, 727-587-1040. Who do you like? What do you think? What should Governor DeSantis do? What about Governor Haley? What about Governor Christie? Why is Governor Christie still in this race? What do you think is going to happen in Iowa? What about New Hampshire? There's so many questions that come up with that. If you were Trump, how would you deal with these different things? A lot of these legal cases, Paul, are kind of falling apart against Trump. And I also think that in terms of reality, like I was reading something where a lot of these EVs are sitting on automobile. I mean, we're live on LinkedIn. I got a lot of owners and GMs and GSMs that are on my LinkedIn out there, and in different dealerships. A lot of these EVs are sitting on lots out there. They don't know what to do. I mean, they're not moving, and I think that you could have situations where what happens to these EVs if they just keep piling up. Meanwhile, Tesla keeps cutting prices. I don't know how you fight Elon on this. And speaking of Elon, and we'll throw this other thing on the table as we have 10 more minutes here to go in the show. A lot of people are saying, hey, Twitter is over. Twitter's over. Oh, this is the worst thing. And this is a boondoggle. And Elon has to do this and that. And like, dude, Twitter is up year over year. Okay. And Twitter's representing free speech. And Netflix is now coming back. And now the EU is starting to look at X. And there's a lot of things going on here about X. Paul, I mean, you're on that platform. You're big on that. What's happening with this? This is such an important issue going on. This is some important topic right here, because I think this is right now where the ideological, contest for free speech is going on right now. What do you think's going on with give us an update on that?
Yeah, I believe the number is that X is up 22% year over year, which is a huge amount. I mean, especially with them trying to shut it down and doing advertiser boycotts. You mentioned Netflix. They've already come back. We know how this works. The advertisers, the companies, they go away when there's pressure, and then they kind of slowly sneak back in. And Netflix was the first one to come back. And I'm sure they'll all be coming back because that's where it's happening. X is where it's at. There is no question about it that's where stuff is getting done, and that's where the conversation is. The EU, I believe the EU recently passed a law about trying to regulate social media, and now immediately they're going after Elon. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, what are you doing? Why do you But so that's very aggressive. I know we talked about this off air. Brendan Carr, who was a member of the FCC, I think on their board, I think they have. He said, "Yeah, look, Biden is he green-lighted different agencies to go after Elon, and they're doing that. But look, Elon is doing great. SpaceX valuation is up to $180 billion. We talked before about how Elon kind of wants to do a financial services model via X, almost like a PayPal type of a thing. And if he did that, he'd probably need a lot less advertising dollars. Well, I already been approved in, I want to say about 8 states. Well, now he just got approved in Pennsylvania. So he's just kind of slowly, methodically making his way through this. And look, the guy's unstoppable. I mean, he's going to start up a university in Austin, put $100 million in seed money for that. You just can't hold him down. He's just too good, even though they're doing everything possible against him. But so many people are supportive of X because I can tell you from being online, there's nowhere else you can talk. The only other place that's similar to that, in my opinion, where you have as much ability to say what you want to say is Rumble.
Yeah.
And Rumble's a video platform. You don't talk to people with messages,
And Rumble right here out of Longboat Key, worldwide headquarters, Longboat Key, right off of Sarasota over here. And it just shows the importance and why we love being on Newstalk 1040 AM. And we're broadcasting right now into, with Longboat Key, Sarasota, Bradenton, St. Pete, Tampa, Lakeland. There's so many different places right here. Why I think this area is so important what's going on. True Social out of Sarasota. There's a lot of stuff going on around here, and it's just, you've got a bunch of people that are coalescing here. And there was an article not that long ago about how the Sarasota area is becoming like, the new center for Republicanism, if you will, or conservatism, or however you want to phrase that. But getting back to the economy, I told you all how important the whole student loan thing was going to be, and how impactful that could be. Economically and politically and stuff like that. And now you have a situation where around 40% of student loan borrowers miss the first payment. Okay. I mean, and this could become a huge deal, Paul. I mean, it's no small thing. You combine that with the average age of the first time home buyer is now 36, which is 3 years older than just a year ago. I mean, we talked about how, housing prices, as you said, were dropping, and people that just bought a house, young families, they're losing equity. I mean, this is California, the Golden State that used to just go up, that housing market's getting hit. I mean, this is hugely problematic right now. This is such a big deal. How much of an impact do you think this whole student loan thing is going to have in the mix of this? Because the Democrats really count on a lot of the youth vote coming out for them, Paul.
I think it could have a massive impact. We know the Israel stuff is having an impact for him because a lot of the younger folks are more pro-Palestinian. And Biden has seemed more supportive of Israel, so that's hurting him. I mean, the polls have said that. This could be massive against him. We know he's tried to do different kind of like Band-Aids and help people out, but 40% of people didn't pay. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, if that if that sticks around like that, those people probably are going to feel like, look, these people got their loans canceled. Why can't I? I mean, that could cause a dramatic amount of problems for Joe Biden. I don't think there's any question about that.
Well, to that extent, and you see it a lot of people, and frankly, a lot of people on the Republican side, and I understand it, but it's all of a sudden it's free market, and and again, full disclosure, my family has a lot of student loans, stuff like that, and all that. So, I'm part of that situation, I guess, but. So I just want to be straight up with the audience on that. I think that's important. But you have a lot of talk like, oh, you should know when you took the whatever. Forget about me and my wife and everything like that. A lot of these people getting these student loans, they're kids. They're kids. Did you know everything at 18, 19, 20 years old? You couldn't go buy a house for $200,000, $300,000, but you can take out student loans. For degrees from that may or may not lead to a job, that may or may not. I mean, and you look at the state of, we've seen now, some of these things, what's going on in some of these elite, academic institutions, with the issues and the events of the last couple months, right? I mean, this is things that are in the news, right? And, these kids are getting crushed. I'm not giving them excuses or anything like that, but I mean, you can't get a job. You can't get a house. People from the M7s now, you graduated MBA, you did everything right. You went to the top schools, the M7 schools. You can't get a job. You can't buy a house. They're trying to put pressure on wages. AI and robots and massive, immigrations are, having pressures on wages and job markets and stuff like that. When the labor market was tight, and you see the people had the ability to move around, I saw nothing but I saw a lot of grousing and complaining by employers and companies on LinkedIn and other places like, this labor market's too tough and this and that, whatever. But as you said, Paul, no one was crying when they took the PPP loans. No one was saying it wasn't right to bail out. Well, some people were saying, but Silicon Valley Bank, these other places got bailed out. How much do you get? How much does it cost the American taxpayers to do real quick, Paul? So a mortgage interest deduction.
Something.
Go ahead. Go quick.
I just want to say that I think one of the shocks for these young people is during COVID, it was all different. The loans were deferred.
Right.
They could do remote work, and now boom, everything hit at once.
That's what I'm saying. And we don't have enough time. We've run out of time again here almost, and it's just it's the same thing. Reality is hitting, but it's very, very brutal for people at the lower end, and I just don't see the same complaints by the Republican donor class when their companies got bailed out, when their companies had PPP, when their companies were deemed essential and mom and pop stores got shut down and gyms got shut down and other places got shut down. They don't complain. The realtors and the people with the big houses and the multiple houses and the vacation houses don't complain about mortgage interest deduction and how the taxpayers are paying for that. It's the same argument, right? The people that have never bought a house or may never be able to buy a house are paying for your mortgage interest deduction. So it's the same thing. We as a country have to set the parameters and set the policies and think about what's going to work for everyone and how do we get it going again and get competitive again. So hopefully the dawn's about to break. So many important issues that we've discussed here. I hope you have a great week. My name is John D. Villarreal. Thank you, Paul, for being on the program. You have a great week. You're listening to Newstalk 1040 AM, and we're also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Stay blessed. See you next week.